back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today we are joined by luxury real estate agent, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and reality TV superstar Tracy Tutor. Tracy is the best known for her role as the first female real estate broker on $1 Million Listing LA on Bravo. After graduating from USC with a degree, this was my favorite part, in theater arts, she followed in her father's footsteps, who was one of the most successful civil and building contractors in the country, to learn the ins and outs of the real estate industry. Now, with 20 plus years experience under her belt, she has expanded her business worldwide and taken on new projects and developments, generating sales up to 8 and 9 figures. We love talking numbers on this podcast, so that's a beautiful thing. Today, we're going to dive deep into the luxury real estate agent world, the entire world of real estate, the various other business ventures Tracy's involved with, and how her love for acting and real estate potentially positioned herself for the role on $1 Million Listing and all of her success. Tracy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Jace, for having me. I appreciate it.
So I have a rule of thumb. When I have anyone on from Bravo, when I do my due diligence, there's one thing I got to do. I have to call my mom. She is the Bravo queen. And so I have the people that work on production, I work on research, and then I call my mom. And I sometimes I don't share what she says. This time I have to. I said, all right, Mom, I got Tracy. She goes, oh, you got Tracy on? Yeah. I go, wow. Give me the lowdown.
See, because some of the women, they love, and some of the women they don't.
What do you think she said?
I'm guessing because you're telling me hopefully she's a fan.
She goes, she's sharper than shit. Sharper than sharp. That was her exact words.
I like that.
You like that?
Thanks, Mom.
Mom, she'll stand by that, Mom. All right, so let's get into, I want to first start with $1 Million Listing LA. Then I want to get into the whole idea of the real estate agent, being a luxury in the business, and your outlook on everything. First with the show. You were in luxury real estate well before the show found you. How did they find you?
Well, because I was actually on season 9, I got a phone call from Josh Altman, who's been on the show since, I don't know, inception. So it's been 14 years. I think he started on season 2.
Okay.
And I was showing one of his houses, and he said, we happen to be filming $1 Million Listing for this particular house. Are you comfortable being on camera? And I was like, I'll do it. That's fine. I'm like, thanks for the heads up 2 hours before. So I called my client. I said, listen, are you comfortable with being filmed? And he said, no problem. It's fine. Let's just go. Mm-hmm. So I went, they filmed it. And it turns out Josh and I have a little bit of banter. And Josh was typically known as having a pretty big ego on the show. The bravado's there. He's super fun on the show. And that's obviously why he's done really well in real estate. So they kind of like the fact that this woman came on the show out of left field and, kind of put him in his place a little bit. And so they asked me to come back and do a negotiation scene when we wrote an offer on the house. Lo and behold, it aired, and our chemistry on camera was quite good. And they said, would you be interested in potentially, screen testing for coming on to be the first female on the show? And I said, I don't know. And so I thought about it, and I ended up screen testing for it, and landed on my first season, which was season 10 of $1 Million Listing. Okay, so talk to me about that process, though, of you saying I don't know. What was going through your head when you were offered the opportunity to be on a show like this, the good and the bad? Well, I think because I'm older, reality shows have been around for quite some time. And back in the day when I was in my 20s, I was offered 2 or 3 different opportunities to, I went out for Housewives, and I was like, I can't do this stuff. Like, this is going to kill my career. And then, everything sort of exploded. And, I was, I think 42 at the time that I shot season 9. With Josh, and I said, look, I'm in my 40s. I've been selling real estate a long time. I know what I'm doing. I can definitely stand next to these guys and sell real estate and feel confident in doing it. And you know what? I've worked really hard, but I wasn't quite getting the leads and, growing my business as fast as I wanted to. So I said, if I was ever going to take a chance, now's the time, right? I was married. My kids were a little bit older at that point, and I said, I've got to do it. Now, at the time, my now ex-husband, was not supportive of it and thought it was a bad idea for our family, my career, and I think he was still very much stuck in that world of how I felt about it in my 20s, doing reality television and sort of it taking, crushing families and, a lot of divorces, a lot of people on Bravo, married, divorced. So the track record wasn't strong for someone who wasn't that invested in it. But I had a very different picture of how I wanted to do on the show. And I think being the first female was such a strong move for me that I did it anyway.
Interesting. Okay, so I know all about records coming from the Bachelor world, and it's not great either, right? And then once you get into other shows, like, my fiance was on Dancing with the Stars. When you look at couples that go into Dancing with the Stars, sometimes they don't make it out of Dancing with the Stars. So I get that. A question I have for you is with career, self-sacrifice, but impact to family. So if in that point he didn't want you to, but you didn't want to self-sacrifice the opportunity, so you did go on, what advice would you have for anyone that's listening to this that might be in that position where their partner doesn't feel as though their career move is the best decision for them or the relationship?
Well, I think you have to really take a look at where you are in your marriage and where you are in your career. And for me, at that time, my marriage, I had been with Jason for, at the time, I started the show 14-ish years. And, we had our struggles. And I sort of wasn't sure if the marriage was going to last anyway. Mm-hmm. And I said, I've worked really hard to get where I am. I've had to struggle. I've lost listings to guys over and over and over again. And I've never had this opportunity to have a platform to get these kinds of real estate leads that could propel my business to the level I've been working for the last 15, I think at the time that I started the show, it was like 15, 16 years in the business. And I said, I've got to do it. And I said, it's not a housewife show. Yep. It's not The Bachelor. It's a little bit different. It's a little more career focused. There wasn't a lot of drama outside of work drama. And so that was my justification for it at the time. Lo and behold, after season 10 aired, or actually during season 10, I ended up filing for divorce.
Interesting. Okay. And do you, when you look back on the decision of you going, and you had mentioned things weren't as great, do you think the show had any type of impact on that?
I don't believe that being on one of these shows sort of promotes a divorce. Sure. I think it sort of spells it out for you in black and white. Yeah. And when I watched the show back, although it definitely was not, it was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. It was definitely not what was wrong in our marriage. But I remember watching season 10 and how disconnected I was from him. And at the end of it, I kept it to myself during the whole show. I didn't come out with it. I didn't speak about it on camera. And then sort of the placards that come up at the end of the season, James and David are living their best life in Beverly Hills, and Josh Altman just had his first baby. And then it was Tracy has filed for divorce and remains focused on her children. It was a tough go for the first woman on the show. And I got a lot of flack for it, a lot of flack from the fans. And, people thought their perception of what my marriage was. And I was a career-driven bitch all of that shit kind of came with it. But I stuck it out, and I decided to stay on the show. And that hopefully has since shifted people's perception of what I am.
Yeah, and I think just even the vulnerability piece, the relatable piece of that, that's something that's very relatable, and a lot of people deal with it. And you know what? Screw the trolls, screw the haters. But let's get back to the show. The show comes to you, you decide to do it. Do they offer advantageous pay to go on a show like this?
Hell no.
With such certainty. No. Okay.
No, you're in the red. But the beautiful,
how are you in the red?
Because what they pay you per episode is negligible on a level that I don't even want to mention.
Okay.
However, the opportunity is there to grow your business exponentially. So that's the trade-off, right? Your hourly wage from the time, and this isn't a show that you shoot in 4 months. This is a show that shoots 11 months to 12 months out of the year. And now this season, there's just 3 of us. So sometimes it's 4 days a week, 5-6 hours a day. So I was working this year close to 80-hour weeks in the prime between my real job of selling real estate and, of course, appearing on the show. It was a lot of hours. But, the leads that come from it, the advantage of being able to sort of write the book that I wrote and obviously have other opportunities has, of course, paid tenfold.
Totally. One thing I want to ask about, you said deficit. Is there any money that you have to put on the table that would be an expense that would cause a deficit for being on the show?
Well, again, I think being, a woman and, getting your hair and makeup done, there's no glam budget. They're not like, oh, let's, there's no budget for that. And we live in LA and it costs a lot of money to get your hair done and your makeup done every time you're filming. But in addition to that, anytime we host an event for an open house, that's all stuff that's out of pocket for us. It's not Bravo. Bravo's not paying for like us to go to Dubai. Actually, they did pay for that. I take that back. But they're not paying for, what we do. So the selling of the real estate is purely on us. So when we throw a big event that sometimes is, north of $20,000 to get that done, that's out of pocket for us.
Because I do think that's a misconception. You see those big parties, or we see your offices, or we see the big events. I think anyone watching the show thinks, of course you guys are getting some type of check or payment for that.
No.
You're not. That's really interesting. All right. You go into reality TV, but you do see the benefits from the exposure and the way it's growing your business and your brand. You studied theater arts. Then I love the book that you wrote. We're going to talk about that. Fear is just a 4-letter word. How to develop the unstoppable confidence to own any room. Now, one thing that doesn't go hand in hand is acting and reality TV. Usually what they say is like, if you're an actor and you're on reality TV, you're not giving them the real stuff. And if you're reality TV trying to be an actor, good luck. Did you find that having a theater arts acting background did help you in the reality TV space? And if so, how?
I think just being in front of the camera, you might be a little bit more comfortable. I think there's a transition for anyone that hasn't done that. And I think specifically working on our show, we sell real estate. We're very comfortable selling real estate. We've been doing it for a long time. So you throw a camera up, and if I'm talking to a client, it's not like we're stretching our character here, right?
Yeah.
Like it's what we do. But in the same sense, there's a lot of, you are kind of creating sort of an environment about a particular listing or a relationship with the client. So you want it to be interesting and exciting, and you want it to be something that people actually want to watch. So I think it made me a little bit more comfortable having the background in theater and being in front of the camera before. But outside of that, it's not really acting. I will say when I first got to the show, again, it had been dominated by men for 9 years. There was a lot of, I think, concern that could a woman come in and hold their own. And historically on the different shows, $1 Million Listing New York, I think there was a Miami one, there was a very brief one in San Francisco. They tried to incorporate women and it didn't land. And the woman was either axed from the show or the show was canceled or whatever. So there was a lot of like, you got to boss up, you got to hold your own. And it was almost like, be more boss, be more masculine. And I'm like, if you just kind of let me be me, I think I'm boss enough. But I was also wrapped up in trying to do what they wanted that whole first season. So it took me a minute to kind of say, like, if you just let me do me, like, trust me, I'm boss enough. Like, you don't have to work. My numbers might not be as big as Altman's, but I make a lot of money doing what I do. And that's because I do know how to own the room, and you don't have to tell me how to do that.
I think that is such a prevalent topic now when you talk also about gender pay gap and anything within that space and everything you alluded to. About 80% of our listenership actually are females. So if one of those 80% are listening to this and being like, I actually do struggle with that. I struggle being the only female in a male conference room. I would look up to someone who's the first lead cast member of a show like this and was able to perform. What advice would you have for them?
Oh, man. I mean, I talk about, and that's why I wrote the book, actually, because I remember after the first season and going through the divorce and coming back for, season 11, I kind of started to come into my own. And I thought to myself, like, how can I explain to people without telling them the ins and outs of what happened in my marriage that, I have the ability to be just as good as these guys, but you have to give me a chance. And I think on television, historically, you don't have second chance. Like, you have like one chance to make an impression. And, luckily in business, it's not that dissimilar. So when you walk into a conference room, you walk into a pitch, you walk into an interview, and you have to sit in front of a room and figure out how to navigate it, you have to prep for it, you have to know your shit. But beyond that, you also have to have a level of confidence that I think a lot of people don't have. And there's there's an education behind that. Like, you have to, it's like exercising your body and going to the gym every day and figuring out how to sort that out in order to have the confidence to walk into an interview and be able to land it, or sit next to a bunch of egotistical men and be able to hold your own in a room without playing to the masculinity piece, but being feminine and being in your own body. There's like a curve to that. And I don't think a lot of women in their 20s have sorted that out yet. And I remember when I wrote the book, they said, oh, this is gonna be great for like women going through divorces in their 40s and getting back into work. I go, yeah, but I actually think it's gonna be more for women in their 20s, kind of coming into the workforce, because I did, and it took me 20 fucking years to figure out how to be in my own body and not try to be more masculine or try to be more confident by kind of playing to my masculine strengths, but rather playing to my feminine strengths. And there's a big difference there. And I think you can still be a woman and wear a skirt and a pair of heels and walk into a room and be intelligent, well-spoken, look people in the eye, and kind of own that. And I think a lot of women coming into the workforce in their 20s or coming out of college don't really understand that piece. And the book ended up selling, the age range was really 25 to 35.
So you nailed it.
And it really spoke to them, because they were like, thank you. And I said, I really wanted to do that more so because I don't want you guys wasting 15 years trying to figure out what I did by failing over and over and over again, trying to navigate how to win and how to pitch a $50 million listing going up against guys that have been in the business for less time than me, that don't know as much as me, that didn't grow up here, and actually win. And I had to lose way more than I won to get to that place.
To figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think so many people do exactly what you did and what I did for a lot of my career. It's this behavior of mirroring what you see as successful. So rather than be yourself, you're mirroring what you see. And the problem is, until you drop into exactly who you are, to the bedrock of who you are, and know that, you'll never be able to hit the best version of yourself in any
100%.
Any realm of life. 20 years of doing it the wrong way. What do you think the number one thing, when you think about that 20 years, the number one thing you did wrong when it comes to walking into a room, or body language, or pitching? What was the one thing you would adjust? Because maybe someone would hear that and be like, I need to change that.
I think you have to be unapologetic. And I think that's like the grand thing, right? But underneath that, you know, when I say being unapologetic in like a meeting or a pitch or an interview where you know who you might be going up against, and you tend to sort of psych yourself out. And whatever you have to do before you walk into that room so that you're not psyching yourself out, whether that's, you know, meditating or going to a boxing class or getting all of that sort of hyper spastic energy out, so that you can be centered before you go into the room, is important.
Like that. 2,
being still, particularly when things get heightened in an interview or you're asked a question that you don't know. I think when you start sort of moving too much or adjusting things and fidgeting, you look nervous and you don't look centered and you don't look grounded, and that makes people uncomfortable. And another one is connection. I think you have to look people in the eye when you want to connect with them. And, you know, most people want to be around and want to hire people that they either want to emulate or that they look up to. And so you got to do your diligence on people that you're meeting with before you walk into the room. You got to know what their likes are, what their dislikes are. Do diligence on their social media. Are they like passive? Do they care about that stuff? Or are they presentable? Like, you got to know this stuff so that you can have an angle before you come into the room. And then it's all just about connection. And, you know, ask questions about them. Let them talk about themselves. People love that shit.
I love that shit, because I asked for one. You gave about 5 brilliant pieces. And I also want to say what Tracy preaches, she practices. Before the show started, I was prepping her on the show. She goes, I know the show. I checked it out. I checked your page. I came prepared. And I think coming prepared into a room has a huge impact on the performance of it. That's a good one. The only one I would add to that I want to put out there is, I think, being okay with silence. Right? I think like knowing when to stop. Because I've noticed that a lot of people that feel that nerve and that energy, they just keep going and they go and they go. And I've seen women and I've seen men do it in like big pitches, and you can't hear if you're only talking.
100%.
And it reminded me when you said the still thing, that reminded me of the silence part. Okay, I want to go into this. You got the premiere coming up here.
Yeah.
It's actually tomorrow. You mentioned when they signed you on, you got paid shit. That's got to change. I mean, you are now the only female lead kicking ass. You got to be negotiating for yourself to get paid more.
I'm gonna say this: if we get picked up and we're lucky enough, and the fans resonate with just 3 of us, because we've gone from 6 people on the show to 3, which is a huge shift. If fans enjoy it and they end up liking the show, the 3 of us will be going back in together.
I like that.
Just a heads up, Bravo.
Come on, Bravo. And would you recommend, though, as a negotiating strategy for anything, like talk to your peers and go in and understand what other people are making?
We're all very clear on that. I'm not paid as much as they are.
Okay.
I think, there's tenure on the show, obviously, and I respect that. But at a certain point, when you're working the hours that we work, and again, doing it over the course of 11 months versus a tighter time frame, I think it's important that we're compensated just enough to cover our costs. But again, we are lucky enough to work on a show where there is a very direct correlation with the success of the show and what we do on it to the amount of money that we're making in real estate.
It's so fascinating, though, because we touch every reality show here. We just had Katie Maloney on from Vanderpump Rules, and she said that the misconception of what people, the general public, think they make per episode is a lot less than they actually make. And I was very surprised by that. So I Googled. I said, all right, Katie, I'm going to Google it right now. I go, how much does Katie Maloney make per episode? And the number came out 10 to 25K per episode. And they're doing a lot of episodes, 10 seasons each. She's like, yeah, a lot lower. So it's just so interesting how some reality shows pay one way and other reality shows pay another.
That's on par with us as well.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, let's get into this. If I have listeners right now that are watching your competitive shows, Selling Sunset, let's say Love It or Listed. I don't know that I would consider that maybe a competitive show, but they're watching competitive shows and they haven't watched your show, $1 Million Listing LA. How would you pitch your show over all the other real estate and luxury real estate shows that are out there today?
I have a ton of respect for Jason Oppenheim and what he does in the business. He's a great agent. He also happens to be an agent that's actually selling real estate. Now, there's shows where the background is sexy real estate because people love watching Los Angeles, beautiful, sexy, modern homes with views and pools. When that becomes a backdrop for drama and, basically a housewife show with the backdrop of real estate, then, and by the way, more power to them, they are killing it. Mm-hmm. Our show is actually about selling real estate. So if you actually like real estate and you want to understand real estate and you want to know actually what we do, I highly doubt that on Selling Sunset in their interviews, they're talking about 1031 exchanges and, how to defer their capital gains on their next purchase. Like, that's just not something that I think they're going to delve into. It's a completely different show. It falls in the same lane, but the truth is, if you want to watch a show that's about selling real estate and you want to become a real estate agent, $1 Million Listing is where it's at.
That is perfect and so well said. I think the other thing too is know what you're watching, guys. Like, so just because it's a real estate show, like identify that maybe it is a drama, maybe it is reality. It's not actually technical real estate that's going to brush up your potential investment opportunities. So very well said, guys. Stay tuned to the recap. We're going to talk about some of those other shows, and I'm going to bring exact examples to support here what Tracy is saying. Now, it's a perfect segue. You guys sell real estate on the show. You've sold real estate before the show. You sell real estate today. You're actually doing it. So we're going to get into the real estate business. I first want to talk about all the speculation happening right now, like interest rates. We're seeing a lot of pullback, at least generally across the United States with demand, but supply is still extremely low. And then I even I read something yesterday on Wall Street Journal about a lot of big investors. It's commercial real estate, but they're pulling out of these big REITs because of the concern with the return that real estate can get given the interest rates. What's your just overall take of the health of the real estate market in the United States?
I mean, I obviously think that interest rates rising the way that they did this year have sort of crushed buyers. But again, I think the media is such a big piece of the fear-based tactics that are happening in our business. And there's a lot of people that have gotten into real estate because it's glamorous, because of shows like ours that are agents that don't really understand the gravity of like how important it is to know what you're doing in these kind of markets, right? So the truth is, it's a great time to buy. And whether or not the interest rate is at right now 6.75%, or if you're in a higher luxury market and you're in a private bank, maybe you can get something for 5%, or even potentially a pinch lower on a 10-year interest only. The fact of the matter is, a typical American buyer, if you're buying in Los Angeles right now, is going to pay a lot less for a house than they did 12 months ago, and you might be paying it at a higher interest rate. But refinance when the shit goes down. You have to look at like the actual dollar for dollar difference. I was lucky enough to purchase my house when interest rates were at 2.5% and a 0 down, and I have a 10-year interest only. That's gold.
Beautiful.
Okay, but I have 10 years to sort that out.
Sure.
And so I can pay down the principal and refinance to something when I feel more comfortable with where the market is. That's not right now. So I advise buyers to be thinking about purchasing end of year this year. There's some things that have shifted in Los Angeles. They've put a mansionization tax that takes place on April 1st, which is going to be really tragic for people selling houses over $5 million, because what was once a 0.45% transfer tax is now going to go to 4.5%.
Whoa.
So
that's
do the math. On a $5 million sale, is going to 4.5%. That is a massive increase. You're paying another commission.
Seriously.
On $10 million or more starting April 1st, those same sellers will be paying 5.5%. That equates to, you sell a house for $10 million, you're going to pay a 5% commission on top of basically a 5.5%. You're over $1 million. So that house is, before you've done anything, $9 million.
Okay, so that obviously works against you.
Yeah.
And the pandemic, and in my opinion, just based on the numbers you see, have worked against LA and New York, just when you see a lot of migration towards the secondary cities, like in Nashville, Austin, Denver, etc.
Right.
Taxes like that, did you really feel the impact in the luxury market, or do you think the people that are still buying at that level, yes, it hits them, but they're still buying at that level and they're buying in LA?
The truth is, I was just talking about this at lunch, and I think these tax-free states, when you're making really ridiculous money, like 12% to me, like, I obviously make great money, but for every $1 million for me to move my entire family to another state, what am I saving? $120,000. What is that doing for me? Like, in the grand scheme of things, that $120,000, like, to uproot my kids. You got to be like dumb wealthy. Like, you're making $50 million a year, and that 12% equates to a significant sum of money that you can go buy a jet or something. That's where we saw a lot of people leaving California and moving to Texas, which is why I got licensed in Texas, because I was just losing, a lot of money.
Yep. Interesting. Okay. All right. Let's get into real estate deal flow. How many deals on average would you say you're working on like a month? Or ideally, do you want to be working on it a month?
I would say last year, I think I did 60-something deals.
Okay.
Not a month.
60 in a year.
In a year.
It's amazing. And
I wish 60 a month.
60 a month would be great.
That'd be awesome.
A lot of scale in there.
But I think this year we're probably right now in December in the 40s.
Okay. So 60, 40s, got it. Of those deals, I saw that the median household value in LA is around $890K-ish.
That's hilarious. I love how classify LA is so massive.
So massive.
The median income or the median household property where I sell houses is closer to about $5 million.
And that's what I was going to ask you. So the median that I researched just in all of LA is that amount. What do you think the median is for your, and that's around the $5 million range?
I would say $5 million, and that's not getting you a whole lot. It's tough. Okay. It's tough to live in this state, and you can be incredibly successful, but to own a $5 or $6 million house, again, the taxes that you pay, it's so expensive to live in California, and now it's becoming even more difficult to sell your property in California. So, where the tax I was talking about earlier hurts so much is for the people that have owned their house for 15 or 20 years. Maybe they bought it for $1 million and they raised their family there, and now that this is what they want to give to their kids. That's an extraordinary amount of money to have to pay back. So God willing, that changes. But in the meantime, it's difficult to raise a family in LA and do well, which is, I think, why so many people are migrating out of Los Angeles.
Interesting. When these things are happening and these taxes are put in place, I think it also gives a buyer or seller another negotiating point to try and reduce your fee, right, as an agent. So what is your take on someone that is trying to negotiate with what your fee and commission should be? Do you budge? Do you not budge? What's the Tracy take?
My typical response is, I'm not a discount broker. If you want a discount, go to Target. I mean, that's not who I am. If you want someone representing your luxury property in Los Angeles, do you want to hire an agent that it's going to not work as hard for you? Or do you want to hire someone that's going to do their job? And, do you see attorneys reducing their hourly? No, never happens. You wouldn't even ask the question. But I think what happens with most sellers, and particularly in the higher end market, is they start looking at what you're making or what your takeaway is. They don't recognize what you're spending on marketing. They don't recognize what you're paying the staff that you have to have in order to run your business. They're not thinking of any of that. So if I have to explain it to them, I will. But my take home is a lot less than the gross that I make on a deal. So I really don't fluctuate when it comes to my commission unless I do more than 3 deals a year. Okay. With that client, and they're a consistent client.
So unless they're doing 3 deals or more, it's either take my fee or walk, and you're okay with walking.
100%.
Interesting. I love that. I love that attitude on it too. I think so many people can learn about that.
The truth is,
when it comes to negotiating.
It's just as easy to sell a $10 million house as it is to sell, an $800,000 house, right? It's unfortunate that you have to work just as hard to sell an $800,000 house. It took me a long time to start selling the $10 million house, and it took me 24 years to get here. If you think I'm going to reduce my fee at this point, we're not meant to be.
What's the sales cycle typically for someone that says they want to start working with you to when you take all the meetings, you drive them around, you give them the red carpet treatment to the day you're getting paid? How long is that cycle usually?
It depends on the market. Last year I was throwing houses on the market. I'd meet with the client, we'd list, usually about 2 weeks between signing contracts and getting it to the market if we're efficient. Mm-hmm. And sometimes within 2 weeks I was under contract. So, but I say, and that's like gold for a real estate agent,
you're just
right?
wheeling and dealing.
The hustle is real, but you've never worked harder, but it's happening really fast. I think we're going to go into a market where we're going to see listings that are going to sit on the market for 6 months. And that's painstaking for us because we don't, there's no hourly, we're just waiting to get paid. So when the market starts to shift like this, which I've been through a couple cycles, it's sort of a recrafting of things. And I had to sit down my entire team and say, look, we're cutting costs and I'm putting limits on, if you guys don't bring X amount of dollars to the table next year, you're out. There won't even be a discussion. If you don't make your numbers, you're gone. And
we need to start taking that. Are we on a talent management agency? That's what we got to start doing. You don't take the numbers, you're out the door.
But I did, I'm very loyal to a fault to the people that I love.
I am. He's not.
And well, that's why he's here. I don't know why I keep looking over you every once in a while. But clearly there's some power in the room.
Yeah, there's something.
But it's a big deal, and it gets to the point where you kind of go, wow, if this is shifting and we are going to have a difficult 2023, we have to shift the way we run the business. And you gotta people, I can't just feed the birds, right? Sure. And I always say to them, I'm giving like the little baby birds, they're like little leads and they got to go run and fly. But then it gets to the point where you're looking at the numbers at the end of the year and you're like, okay, well, some of them flew and some of them didn't. And 5 years in, it's like sink or swim. You got to go.
Yeah. And this is a business. It's similar to the one that we operate. Like if you screw up your human capital costs, it could sink your business.
100%.
It could absolutely sink your business. Let's get to something that's on the a little more fun. What's the biggest deal you've ever done?
Last year I closed something for $57.5 million.
$57.5 million.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, shit.
Was that here in LA?
Yeah.
What is how many square feet is that house?
The house is actually only 13,000 square feet, but it was on 6.5 acres.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was to a woman, which I thought was so boss.
Love
She was like,
that.
and an agent in New York referred her to me and said, she's trying to sell her house in the Palisades for like $8 million. She's having a tough time with her agent. Would you mind meeting with her, maybe taking over the listing? I met with her and she's like, I've been following you for a long time. I really want to like empower women and work with women. Would you take this over?
Wow.
Well, after the phone call, the house went into escrow.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I got an offer. And I said, well, congrats, babe. No worries. $8 million, whatever. It's like, you win some, you lose some. She said, but I have to find something. I had no fucking idea it was going to be 57. I was like, oh, but it didn't start
Almost
that
10
way.
times.
It just kept growing. And I started showing her houses, and I called my friend in New York and I said, I know I told you I was going to show her some houses for sale, maybe 15 million, 20 million. Well, just FYI, we're under contract for 57.5.
Wow. Okay, so for people that are hearing these numbers and don't understand how real estate works, in this situation, you would get 3% of that, right?
In LA, typically the standard commission is 5%, so
Okay.
2.5 to each side. So in this case, it was, and once you start getting north of probably 25 million, it shifts from about 2.5 to around 2.
Okay,
So it was a 2% commission.
there you go, guys. You do the math. That is, that's a good deal.
It's nice. It's a nice chunk of change.
That female, that doesn't happen to be Mariah Carey, is it?
No, actually, she's
Okay.
a CEO of a publicly traded company.
Very nice.
And I sold her co-CEO a house as well.
Okay, all right. And I asked about Mariah Carey because I did read that you sold Mariah Carey's house.
No,
No, you bought a house for her. You represented her.
No, not Mariah Carey. I've worked with a lot of celebrities, but we sold our house to, or leased our house to Britney Spears.
Okay.
That crazy one. And so yeah,
I've heard stories.
we've got quite a few. Yeah.
What? Come on, you gotta give us one Britney Spears story. You leased your house to her?
My family home in Hidden Hills growing up, and now that same home was torn down and sold to Kardashians, and now Mama and not Kylie, which was the Chloe. Mom and Chloe live on my old house growing up, or they now
It's
rebuilt
like
them.
magic dust in that
It's
soil.
a little dust in that soil.
It's
yeah.
something good. Let's go dig that up. All right, one Britney story. Come on.
Well, when we had to do the walkthrough, I mean, how do I explain her? I think she's off social media for a minute. I don't know if you follow her.
Mm-hmm.
I do, but like, I feel bad saying this because it's just obviously she's been through hell and back, but like, it's a little all over the place.
Sure.
You know? Yeah. And so she was a little crazy.
She lived up to that.
Yeah, very much so.
Tough to interact with.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think my favorite, on a lighter note, is I worked with Janet.
Oh, wow.
Which was like
That's so
an
cool.
iconic moment for me. I'm older than you, so
Yeah,
like
but
growing up,
she's-
Janet Jackson was like my idol. Like I
Yeah.
remember doing like dances to Control, and so when I met her for the first time, first we had spoken on the phone, and I said to the person, like, can I say that I'm like a
fan.
hardcore fan? She's like, well, don't be a freak about
Sure.
it. Just be like calm. She got on the phone and she was like, she kind of whispers. She's like very soft spoken. And I was like, hi.
Love you.
Oh my God. I just want to get it out. I'm a huge fan. I don't know why she used me after that, because I was really a little bit over the top, but what a fantastic woman. And she ended up inviting me to her 50th birthday. And I swear to God, it was maybe the best moment of my life. And I was standing in a circle with like Lil' Kim was on my left. I was literally maybe one of like 3 white women in the whole room. And I'm like, this is like the best moment of my life. I had like all these Ciara and like everybody's dancing in a circle around Janet. And I'm like, I could just quit. And
This is it.
This is the highlight
is
of my
it.
life. And hopefully she doesn't find out I told this story, because I'm not supposed to talk about it.
That's just so cool. I did, it's one of the interviews, someone brought Mariah Carey up, I think, and one of your responses was like, so obviously you didn't represent her, but you said like, as long as they write the check, I'm good.
Yeah.
In a scenario like that, that's so cool though. That's more than just writing the check. You agree with that, right?
100%.
And does that lead, when you're working with someone who has such influence over the world, does that lead to more deals to you, or
Yeah.
introductions?
I mean, the clients that I have worked with, all of the celebrities, believe it or not, that I have worked with, from like Channing and Jenna Tatum, like they're the most down to earth. I don't think I attract assholes for the most part, or I've weeded them out. And I think most of the celebrities I work with are the most chill, easygoing. They tend to be actually more chill than some of my finance clients and, hedge funders and those types. And so, I can't say enough about, like, it's funny, your perception of celebrities is that they're incredibly difficult, and in most cases, they're really not.
Interesting. A lot of people that are listening to this might have difficulty impressing their boss, impressing, I don't know, maybe their partner, colleague, anyone. You have to impress, like you had mentioned to some of these people, this is the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%. So in my opinion, I know you had made the mention of the celebrities, that's a really tough crowd to impress and to live up to from a service perspective, because they get the wildest of treatment. How do you do that? What's your tip for someone that's struggling with impressing or servicing their clients?
Take the word impressing out of your vocabulary.
Love that.
I think those type of people, everybody is hounding them all the time, trying to impress them, trying to get in the room with them. And it's just not, like, particularly in real estate, it's such a personal experience for them. Like, you're trying to find them a place that's safe, that they feel comfortable and happy. And I've found more often than not, anytime I've dealt with these celebrities that even I was nervous about meeting, like Janet or Channing and, Britney, all of these types of people, the more authentic you are and the more chill that you are and the more yourself that you are, they gravitate towards it, because they're like, she's not putting on a show. I would never ask any of these people to do my show. Like, they're always like, who do you got this year? And I'm like, none of my celebrity clients, I wouldn't even mention it. I would never put them in that position. Now, if they wanted to do it and brought it to me, I'd be like, game on. But I think they appreciate sort of authenticity and the lack of you trying to, blow it up and show up ready to, like, impress them. You know what I mean? They get that every day.
Right. I think that's a great piece of advice. Don't impress them. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone's going to hear this, and they're going to hear the Janet Jackson story and all the success and the $57.5 million. And I think we're already seeing it. The real estate market for agent side is just flooded. People are just getting in it because they hear stories like this and they see the shows. If someone is thinking about getting into the industry, how would you advise them?
Don't do it. I'm just kidding.
No, I think that's fair, though. I
would say that a lot of our shows, like Selling Sunset and even Buying Beverly Hills, it just came out with Mauricio, which I'm so happy for them, and our show and many others, glamorize what we do for a living. And we always say this in interviews, and I talk about it a lot. Like, for the 10 deals that you watch me do this season, there was 15 that went totally south. And so we've tried to incorporate a little bit more of that. Like, I think in the premiere episode, I lose a listing to Altman because it's just not as glamorous as, obviously a TV show is going to do. So if you're thinking about getting into it this year, you might want to keep your day job, because it's not a good time to be getting into the business, truthfully. We're in a difficult time in the market. Agents that have historically made $500,000 to $1 million a year are making $250,000. So when you're working on commission, unless you have a little hefty savings account to get you off the ground in a difficult market, it's not a great time to get into the business. It's
good advice from someone who's doing it well. A dollar question: what's the most you've ever heard someone in the luxury space making in a year? Like, there's a rumor going around the office, Altman made their flag, or someone out in New York City made 10 million. Like, what's the most you've ever heard? 10 million.
Yeah.
Damn, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
It's funny because, again, I was like a failed actor. So I got into the business because I grew up in LA, and I thought to myself, I know people, like, I can do this, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how difficult is it to show homes? I was obviously proven wrong, after several years of, like, barely scraping by. But I think, being in this industry is, like, something that you have to commit to and be in it for the long haul. It's not easy. You will work hard. Like, people think it's like a jobby that you can, like, a lot of moms want to do this because I can take my kid to school in the morning. And the truth is, if you want to be successful, you can't.
You can't. Yeah.
Like, you can't. It's a full-time gig, 100%.
Okay. I want to reverse the question, not for someone looking to get in, but someone that's looking to buy or sell. One tip for a buyer, one tip for a seller that they wouldn't know or learn unless they learned it from you.
I mean, I don't think this is like, new news, but I think if you're selling your house, edit. You got to learn how to edit. Like, there's a lot of tchotchkes. You walk in, a lot of tchotchkes are no good. And in our business, it's about making a house that you've personalized over the years. Unless you're an interior designer with exquisite taste, more often than not, you need to edit everything out. Take down pictures. The more, I hate to say this, vanilla it is, the more it's going to appeal to a multitude of buyers and put you in a better position to negotiate the highest dollar.
Okay. I think that's a good piece
For
of advice.
a buyer, be pre-qualified before you start looking at houses. Like, don't go out and get an agent to start hustling for you and be like, yeah, we're working with the bank, should be fine. Yeah, we're good. And not get yourself pre-qualified. Right now, lending is they're being very stringent about not just interest rates being high is difficult for buyers to wrap their head around, but getting approved. Like, you have to make a significant amount of money for a significant number of years in a row. And they'll tell you when they pre-approve you that, 20% down, you're good. We're going to lock you in at 5.5%. You purchase the house, you're in escrow, you've got a contingency period to, qualify your loan. And then on day 15, mortgage guy comes to you and goes, yeah, we're all good. We're going to be totally approved. I'm just going to need 40% down.
Oof. That's a game changer.
That's a game changer
especially
for a lot
when
of
you're
people.
talking about larger
So
priced homes.
really get like fully approved. Get everything that you can before you even step foot in the door. The last thing you want to do is fall in love with a house that you're not ready to make an offer on.
Ugh. Okay. That's good advice. Get pre-approved. Get rid of the vanilla, edit that home. And if you're sitting there at home right now and you're saying, I wonder if it is vanilla, that's your answer. I'm telling you, it's vanilla,
just
right?
Send me a picture, DM it to me, and I'll be happy to oblige.
There you go. And before we get your trading secret, let's wrap with this. The premiere's tomorrow. By the time this comes out, the season's out, right? What can you tease for us? What can we expect?
I think a lot more personal because there's just 3 of us this season and we're all really good friends. There's a lot of highs and lows. We've got Flag going through a divorce. And so between me and Josh advising him on that and definitely some drama between the 3 of us and our friendships, I take Flag to the mat, later in the season.
I personally would like to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, later in the season, we definitely have a pretty major challenge in our friendship. And so, you get to have to tune in to watch that play out because we're very close.
Was it the toughest was this the toughest season to film?
Definitely.
By a long shot.
We gave it 110%. We knew, all bets are off. Like, they're counting on the 3 of us to carry this show and we got to bring it. So we brought it.
They brought it. Guys, make sure you go tune in to $1 Million Listing LA. We got to wrap with your trading secret. It's a piece of advice, financial advice, career advice, life advice, anything that someone can't learn in a textbook or from a professor or Google. They can only learn it from your experience. What would your trading secret be to the viewers?
I didn't even know. I should have obviously done a little more research.
We could edit this out. We could, when you think, we can edit thinking out, which is beautiful.
I would say you're always trying to play at what you think you're supposed to be to get the job. I just say, stay in your lane. Stay where you're the most confident by being your most authentic self, because I swear to God, I spent so many years trying to be everything that I thought I was supposed to be in my 20s and 30s, and then finally landed in my 40s and went, me doing me has gotten me way further in the last 5 years than trying to be everything else to everybody else. So just be authentic, do you, and I promise it will come to you. It's
brilliant advice. Tracy, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. There's so many more things I wanted to get into. We just didn't have time. The wine, the book, everything else. I was just so enthralled with your time on the show and the entire experience you've had in real estate. So for your wine, for your book, your social media, where can everyone find everything Tracy's got going on?
You can find me on social media at Tracy Tutor, both on TikTok and Instagram. Unsweetwine.com, which we are now shipping nationally. And it's a 0 sugar wines for all you girls out there that love a little wine after work. Or men that are into saving that, do it. There's a really great white and a couple of reds. So that's really it.
I love it. That is the first and only female cast lead for $1 Million Listing LA. Tracy, thank you so much for being on this episode of Trading Secrets.
Thank you, Jason.